I hope you enjoyed joining me on that little walk to the Longstone in Motterston. It's one of my personal favourite walks, which is why I really wanted to share it with you today. So now, inspired by that walk and the lovely scenery, we're going to do just a little landscape painting. Really simple techniques. And all we're going to need is some paper. I'm just using my sketchbook. If you have any nice thicker textured paper or card, you could always use that, but anything's fine. We're going to need some masking tape and some paint as well. I'm using gouache paint, although I've heard it pronounced many ways. I still don't actually know which is the right way. Is it gouache? Is it gouache? Is it something else? Anyway, so these are the colours that we're going to need today. We're going to need some black and some white, some light blue, dark blue, green, a light brown, dark brown, red and orange. Could probably do with some yellow, but as luck would have it, I've run out, so we'll just use what I've got. We're also going to need a paintbrush. I think I'm probably going to be using sort of a flat square brush, and I will also have just a smaller shaped brush for adding some detail in at the end. So the very first thing I'm going to do is, using my masking tape, mask off a rectangle which to paint our scene. You don't have to do this if you haven't got any masking tape, it's absolutely fine. So it is a neat little trick just to make your painting look really tidy and a lot easier to frame as well. A nice clean edge always makes it look just that little bit more professional. So again, no particular dimensions, just a rectangle, and we go all the way around the outside with the masking tape, and when we've done our painting we will pull the tape off and have a lovely neat picture. Right, we're actually going to need a little bit more tape before we start getting some paint on, because we're going to find our horizon first. I'm thinking if we're going to split this up into sky, a band of sea, we're inspired by the lovely coastline of the West of the Wight, some land in various layers in the foreground. So just to do our sky first of all, I'm going to leave a gap of round about between a third and a quarter of the page, or of the area that we're going to paint on, and nice and horizontal for our horizon, like so. Now the first colour that I'm going to want is 2 different shades of blue. Now, I love this gouache, however you say it, paint. It's one of my favourite mediums because of its properties. It's well, it's very much like a watercolour, as it's water soluble, but it does have a lot more of an opaque quality to it. You can change the opaqueness, the amount of water that you add to it. Right, so for our sky, the sky is always darker away from the horizon, gets lighter down towards the horizon, so I'm going to start with the dark blue. A bit of water. As it's right at the background, at the very back layer, I'm going to have a fair bit of water, so it's relatively see-through. And not worrying too much about any neatness, I'm just going to drag across the top. And then I'm going to go to my lighter blue and from the bottom. Add a little bit more water to my brush. Just brush backwards and forwards with my flat brush. Try and mix those two together a little bit, so you can't see where the dark blue ends and the light blue starts. Blend it together. We should have a lovely bright sky. We're going to want to add some clouds to that sky as well, so a little bit of the white. I haven't got much of white left either. And with the smaller brush, and not much water on the brush, a lot drier, as if our brush is dry and we've got less water with the paint, it's going to be a lot more opaque. We can go on top of this blue here with a little bit of the white, just to add a few clouds in. Now we're not going to do, don't have to worry too much about detail, it's just shapes and colours. So I'm just going to dab a few bits of white. We can have it right down here onto the horizon line, and then when we remove our tape, the clouds are going to go right down to the horizon. If we just put a little bit of paint on this dry brush and dab it on, not working it in too much, you'll create a little bit of a 3D effect with the cloud as well, with some more brighter white areas and some that blend into the blue a bit more. And I think that'll do for the clouds. Now let's see how this horizon looks, the sky, and then we're going to add in our next layer coming forward, and that's going to be the sea. There we go, that's a lovely straight horizon. And what we're going to do next is get a little bit more masking tape, and we're going to do another horizontal line a little bit further down, leaving a gap of, I don't know, 1 centimetre or so. It's up to you, it's your painting. I'm going to leave about that much to add our next layer, which is going to be the sea. When you're doing painting, if you want to make give it a sense of perspective, it's always good to start with painting the things that are furthest away. So in this case it's the sky and then the sea, and you're coming forward adding layers until you get to the foreground of your picture, which will probably be some trees or something like that, some plants, and that way, by layering the paint up, we create a sense of depth. So for our sea, trying to remember some of the colours that I saw out in West White the other day. I'm going to take a little bit of this light blue, mix it with this white, and add a tiny bit of black. Because although the sky was beautiful and blue, the sea is getting a bit stormy and wintry. Got a bit of a grey tinge to it. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to need my flat brush for this. Using this sort of bluey grey colour that I've mixed up, I'm going to go straight across, as straight as I can, which is why it's good to use a brush like this with a kind of sharp edge. You may find it easier to turn your page to suit how you hold your brush, and I'm going to try and come straight along the horizon, like so. Also with this brush, just using the edge and getting a little bit of maybe a slightly darker colour. I haven't mixed up very well on my palette, which is on purpose as well, so I get lots of different shades in there, and can add just a few little lines across. It's an indication of some waves coming in, like so. I'm getting just a little bit more white. Tiny bit left. I may have to move on to white poster paint if, if the going gets too rough. Now, again, using this flat brush, just going to get some white right on the edge. And along this second bit of tape that we've put across, just going to add some, just dot some white paint in. Bits of the breaking waves, and some along there. Right, and now, all being well, it's time to take this layer of tape off as well and see how that looks. Not bad. Okay, right, let's get this paintbrush out of the way. We're going to need another bit of tape. Now, this is why sometimes some better quality paper is advantageous. As I'm starting to take off a little bit of the paper with this masking tape, we're going to get another little bit of masking tape like so, and choosing an angle, because we've now got the land to fill in. We've done the sea and we've done the sky. Now we need to do the land, and we're going to have 2 layers of this, sort of a lower area in the midground and a hill that we, the viewer, are sort of stood on in the foreground. So to do that, we're going to get a bit of tape and put it at a bit of an angle up to a horizon line, or just above. I'm going to go just above, so about here. Like so. See, you can choose to have a more gentle slope or a steeper angle. And our next bit of ground we're going to fill in now is here. And for that, we're now going to need some green. A bit of green. And I said, unfortunately, I haven't got any yellow, otherwise I'd be mixing a little bit of yellow in with that as well. But I can go with a little tiny bit of white on this one side of the green, and a little bit of our light brown, burnt sienna, or it could be a burnt umber, which again I think I seem to have run out of as well. So we're going to use those and get this flat brush again, get most of the water off it. We're going to just sort of roughly mix it up together, not too much, so we've still got lumps of the brown, lumps of the green and streaks of white through it. Now we're going to be thinking about directionality and bringing our rolling hills, rolling sort of the lower areas across this way. You might want a bit of a, you've got a bit of a valley down here, which I think we did out in West White. I'm going to start from here and have a bit of slope, a bit of a curved shape to it with this flat brush. To get the direction of the hills. It doesn't matter if you go up over into the sea, as we because this paint, where it is quite opaque, it will go over the other colours quite well, which is why I do like this medium. Bringing it over like that. A bit of a curve. The west of the Isle of Wight is definitely one of my favourite places in the world, not just on the Isle of Wight, mainly due to my love of paleontology. It's a great place to go fossil hunting, but there's just so much other history there as well. As you saw in my video earlier, we've got the barrows and the burial mounds, as well as obviously Mostyn Manor. It's a beautiful, beautiful area, lovely out West White. Hope that you enjoyed the video. Thought perhaps it might be somewhere that some people have always wanted to go but never made it out to, or maybe it's a favourite place that you haven't had a chance to get to for a while. So again, just with the browns and the greens, I've been using the flat brush and using it to really show, with the streaks of paint, the shape of hills and valleys, going round and down, like so. So now I think it's probably time to take this bit of tape off as well and see how our next layers come on. Bring that back. Lovely. Right, and for our very last layer, before we do some detail, right in the foreground, our last sort of block of shape, our next block of land, we're going to have a bit of a hillside coming up here. It could come over and obscure the horizon even, or part of the sea. And for that, as some lovely autumn colours on my walk the other day, I'm going to use some brown and some orange, some light brown, some orange, and we'll put a little bit of this burnt umber. Ooh. That's a new one. Put some of that on there as well, much darker brown. For the foreground, right, no tape to protect us here. I'm just going to go straight back in with this flat brush again, dipping and brush in a little bit of each of these autumn coloured paints, not mixing them together, and got to commit starting at this bottom bit. I'm going to bring our hillside up, and with this sort of paint as well we should be able to make those layers and cover up behind. Again, thinking about directionality. We haven't really got a light source in this picture, and I'm not worrying too much about exact shadows. Following that hill down, like so. If you want a nice smooth edge, turn your paintbrush around and use this flat edge. So. Right, now we're going to do a little bit of detail. We get some more of this darker brown, and we're going to do just a little bit of detail in these green fields below. A little bit of blue, sorry, a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown even, mixed with a little bit of this green, and maybe even a little bit of black as well. And using this flat side of my brush, just going to gently dot in a few lines, not straight, but just a few lines following the shape of the land. The indication of some fields and hedgerows. Just here and there. And that should do. Right, and now for the foreground, we're going to need a bit more of the black with the dark brown, tiny bit of black mixed in with the dark brown. Get a really nice dark colour. Again, quite a dry brush, we don't want to be mixing much water with this paint now, as this is our final top layer. We want it to be opaque and thick enough to cover all of our background colours. So getting just this very fine edge with a smaller brush, I'm going to do some stems, stalks, branches of some trees and plants up here. Some a little bit here. Like so. And as it's autumn, to finish off, I'm going to get a bit more orange, some of this nice bright red as well, and again just using a small brush. I'm not going to go for any really fine detail, but starting with the red, just going to get a bit on the edge of my brush. And where I've done these stalks and branches, I'm going to add a few leaves, just a few red ones. Oh, I want some orange, some really nice autumny trees. some of this burnt sienna as well. Finally, there's a few green ones left as well. If I had some yellow paint, I'd definitely be using some yellow, but like I said, I think a few of the paintings that I've done lately have been rather heavy on the yellow, so I haven't got any. I'm just using the shape of the edge of the brush, the shape of the end of the brush, just to print, really, as opposed to actually painting. I think I'm just dabbing the paintbrush and using the shape of the end of it to make the impressions of my leaves. And right at the very foreground, I'm going to go back to this really dark green that I mixed with a little bit of black, and just going to add a little bit of detail. What you can do, if you've got one, as I've got one, I think I might use it. A fan brush is always great for doing any sort of trees, grass, leaves. Again, if you're not trying to paint a shape, you're just using the natural print of the brush. And I think that will do. Right, now it's time for the big reveal. Let's see if it looks all right or not. I'm going to take the tape off around the edges now and see if we've got a nice little autumn scene. Carefully does it, not to rip the paper. Nearly. Oh, find an edge that we can get. And there we go. You might find that you want to go back and do a little bit more detail to it, but once you've taken the tape off from around the edge, do be careful not to go too near to the sides, otherwise your lovely neat edge will be lost forever. I'm just going to go in and add a few more of these nice orange leaves to make it really autumny. Add in some different browns in there as well, why not? Oh, just like that. A tiny bit of black. At the front. Right, I've signed my artwork now. That's always good to sign your paintings at the end, to be proud of what you've achieved. It's not quite a masterpiece, but I'm quite happy with it. I hope that in today's workshop maybe I've at least given you a little bit of an idea of some techniques on how to paint landscapes, sort of working with the depth and layers starting from the background, working towards the foreground, and creating that depth in that way. And hopefully maybe you've learnt some new tips and techniques as well, like with the masking tape to get our nice straight horizons, etc. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you soon. Bye.